now take a break from talking about one portion of the MLP franchise to discuss another, more recent addition to the ever-expanding roster of stories. Yes, 7 years after the franchise was revived, much to the delight of many fans both young and old, Hasbro decided to make an actual cinematic film which does not include the iconic characters being sent into the human world. Many people, including myself, have been anxious about this film since its announcement, both for good and bad reasons. The good reason being that it would be a film featuring our favorite cast with a new animation program which had a much higher quality than the one from the television show. The bad reason being that most children's animated films these days seem to have had a massive drop in quality, with very few exceptions. Seriously, the trailers prior to the film are just a montage of what is wrong with modern-day children's films. Does My Little Pony the movie fall into the same traps? Or will the same staff who made the television series make a worthwhile film? Well, first and foremost, the animation is phenomenal with the new Toon Boom animation program, truly giving the film a cinematic touch. The movement of the characters feels less restricted and more fluid, allowing them to have a broader range of emotions rather than instantaneously switching their demeanor on the fly. The same goes for the scenery as well. There's more depth, color, and variety to the world in this film, especially with how the story takes the characters out of their home and places them in unique environments never seen before on the show. The animation truly conveys how unique and new these portions of the world are. Speaking of the story, unfortunately, that is rather hit and miss depending on your perspective. The story is not exactly the most compelling or original, following a lot of tropes from other children's films. I won't spoil it here for the sake of those who actually wish to experience the film blind, but believe me when I say that we have seen stories like this before. The pacing doesn't necessarily help at times either. While I'm not exactly as alert as others when watching movies, I will admit, upon reflection, this film does tend to speed up at a somewhat jarring rate at times in order to keep the story fresh and alive in the minds of children. Just when you want more time to be devoted to establishing the world and its people, the plot suddenly lurches forward in order to change locations and introduce more characters for the main heroines to befriend. Moving on to the characters, I will admit I had a lot of fun with this roster of characters both old and new. The main cast were as enjoyable as they have always been on the television show, and the new cast were certainly just as colorful. The one drawback is that the backstories and motivations of the secondary crew are, unfortunately, rather lukewarm in this film. This may be in part due to the rather manic plot and how it tends to race by certain segments, but there is a way to bypass this. Prior to the film's release, there was a 4-issue comic book series which dedicated itself to establishing who these characters were prior to the events in the film. The main cast are not even seen, save for their obligatory appearances on the covers, allowing most of the new characters the time they sorely needed in the film. Also, since this is of course a children's film, there are plenty of songs. Thankfully, these songs are rather catchy and fun in spite of their lack of originality. My personal favorite has to be the obligatory villain song, sung by Emily Blunt, who plays the role of Tempest Shadow. The blend of animation, instrumentals, and Blunt's vocals make for a memorable song that has been stuck in my head since I first heard it. Other songs, such as those sung by Taye Diggs, who plays the role of Capper, Zoe Saldana, who plays Captain Seleno, apologies if I mispronounced that, and Kristen Chenoweth, who plays the role of Princess Skystar, were all pretty entertaining as well, and certainly make purchasing the soundtrack a necessity for fans of the film both young and old. So, in the end, is My Little Pony the movie worth the cinematic experience? Personally, I would have to respond with a resounding yes. The animation is truly glorious to be seen on the silver screen, making full use of the Toon Boom program. The songs are catchy and will certainly not annoy parents who bring their kids to the film. And the characters are, more or less, quite a joy to see. I will admit, however, that the pacing and storytelling could be somewhat of an issue for those who have a more acute sense of what makes a film work. However, one must keep this in mind. My Little Pony is for children. It always has been, in spite of how the franchise now resonates with adults. So, of course, the pacing of a cinematic film isn't going to be perfect, and the story may not entirely be original. But what this film lacks in pacing, it makes up for in style. So if you're a parent and your child wants to see this film, feel free to oblige. And if you're a fan of the series, go check it out. Make your own opinion about the film. My opinion is this: My Little Pony the movie is a fun, if flawed, film anyone can enjoy. In the meantime, though, never stop rambling. This has been Rambles and Mumbles of a Nerd with possibly the shortest video I've ever made, and I thank you very much for watching this episode.